So it's time to hash these passwords. We don't want to store these passwords in visual form. We want to hash these values. And if you don't know what hash means, let's come inside this npm.js, and this is the package that we are going to use called bcrypt. And if you come inside this bcrypt.online, you can see the live example here. Now inside this input field, you can add the plain text. So this is going to be the password that we want to use, for example. And from here, you can use the cost factor. And how to choose the right cost factor, it's a completely different game, which you can come here and understand more about these. But I will explain it later. Whenever we are going to use this, we are going to use one of these values, and higher the value will be, it will take longer time to hash this password and unhash this password. And higher this value will be, the secure your password will be. So we are going to go in between this 8 or 10 or something like this. Okay, so don't go all the way to the beginning or all the way to the end. And also, if you want to know more about these things, you can go and learn more about the cost factor right here. Now after that, let's just come down and let's click on this generate hash. Okay, once we are going to click on this, as you can see, this is the value that we got for this plain text. Okay, now next thing that we can do is we can simply copy this output. Let's come down, and here we are going to provide this hashed value. Okay, so this is the same value that we got for our password 12345678. Now this is the plain text. Now this is again going to be our password. Now I'm just going to use this 12345678 or whatever value that you like, but I'm not going to use 8 here. Now I'm going to verify this value with this plain text, and I'm going to click on this verify, and the plain text does not match the supplied hash. So now if I just provide the actual value here and try to verify this hash, this will be verified. So this is how this hashing algorithm works. Okay, first of all, we are going to supply the plain text, and this is going to give us the hashed value, and we are going to store this hashed value inside our database. And whenever we are going to need to verify the same password, we can use the verify method, and we can provide the hashed value and the actual text, and this is going to verify whether they both are same or not. And that's how we are going to have the secure password. There is no other way that you can verify this hashed value without providing the actual text that you used when we generate the hash. So let's see how we can use it inside our project. So first of all, let's just copy this. I'm going to come inside my project, and I'll open another terminal with Ctrl+Shift+5, and I'll install the bcrypt. And also, if you notice here, we have this little flag called DT, which stands for we have to now also install this declaration file or the type declaration file. So for that, I'm just going to use that same command again, but this time I'm just going to install it as the dev dependency. So for that, you can use --save-dev, or you can just use this -D. And here I'm going to use this @types/bcrypt. So that's how we are going to install the types as well. Now we can come inside our user model, and at the top here, I'm going to import two methods, which is going to be hash, and this is going to come from inside our bcrypt. And also we are going to import one more thing, and that is going to be compare. And also let's import this method called generate salt. Okay, let's just come down, and here what we are going to do, we are going to again add an event listener to our user schema. So we are going to use this method called pre, and here we are going to have all these options which we can use, but we want to fire this event whenever we are going to save this file. Now after this, let's just pass this function. So here we have to pass the old function. You cannot pass the arrow function because inside this one you are going to use this keyword. So first of all, let's check if this dot is modified, and here we are going to pass our password. So whenever this password is going to be modified, we want to hash these password. So this dot password, and this is going to be equal to, let's await for this hash method, and here we are going to use this dot token, and here we have to pass the salt rounds. So for that, we can use our salt round. So I'm going to use this salt, and let's use this generate salt, and here we are going to pass the value. So here I'm going to use this 10 as the salt round, and we are going to pass the salt. And because we are using this await right here, we have to wrap this function inside this AC. And sorry for my mistake, this needs to be this dot password, not token. And here you can see we have the salt, but this salt is going to be there if we just awaited the result. Now this is how we are going to have that same exact value like this. And after that, inside this function, we are going to have this next function. And you already know that, right? How this next function works. Now, if we don't call this next function, this is not going to move to the next logic. So we just need to call this next function right here. So let's format this code and let me explain what is happening here. So we just use the user schema.pre method, and this pre means that we just want to fire this function before we are going to save this user, okay? And then we are checking if we are modifying password. So inside here, as you can see, we have this email password name, and in future here we are also going to have the avatar field. And at that point of time, whenever we are going to update the avatar, we don't want to update password, or we don't want to hash the password, right? So for that, we are checking here only we want to hash this password if we are modifying the password field. Then we are calling the next function, which is going to run the next logic. Now let's just duplicate this function one more time, and this time what we want to do, let's come inside this auth controller. So in future, we want to have the same kind of a logic, like to verify our plain password with the hashed password right inside this user model. Like for example, if we come inside here, then we have this user, right? And here, if we just press this dot here, we have a bunch of these properties and the methods. So right here, what we want to do, we want to have this method like verify password or compare password or something like that. So here we are simply going to pass the plain password, and this is going to give us the Boolean value, whether this is valid password or not, like we did right here. So let's just create this method inside our user model. So this time here, we are not going to add any event listener. Instead of this, here we are going to add a new method. So inside this methods object, we are going to add this method called compare password. And again, because here we are going to use this keyword, we are going to use the same function. I mean the old function, not the arrow function. Now instead of this next, here we are going to accept the password, which is going to be a string. And then we are going to remove all these things, and we are going to await for this compare method that we have imported. If you come up, this is the method that we are using from inside this bcrypt, and inside this compare we can pass these two things, data, which is going to be the buffer, and encrypted string. So this data is going to be the password that is going to come from our user, which is going to be plain password. And after that, here we have to pass the encrypted value, which is going to be the value like this, and this is the value that we already have inside our database. So for that, you can simply use this dot password, and this is going to give you the Boolean value. So let's just return the result. Let's just save this file, and now you can use this compare password method right here inside this user, and here you can pass your password. But as you can see, we cannot use this compare password. According to the TypeScript, there is nothing called compare password inside our user, and we'll fix these things later. But now we have to repeat the same process that we did here for our auth verification token as well, because we also don't want to store these tokens like this. We want to hash these values. So for that, let's just copy the same logic. Let's come inside our auth verification token, and we are going to replace this thing with schema, because we have stored its value inside this schema. Then we are going to do that same thing right here, and because here we don't have this thing called password, we are going to hash the token, okay? And now let's import all of these methods from inside bcrypt. Also, let's import the compare method, and this time instead of comparing password, we are going to compare token. And let's just replace all these things and use our token. And now after that, we also need to check if we are modifying token instead of password. Let's just save this file, and that's how we are going to hash our token. That's how we are going to compare our token, and that same thing will be true for these passwords. Now let's just come inside our database, and I'm going to simply drop the entire database. Let's just drop the database, and now I'll try to create new users. So I'll come inside this part, and here I'm going to send the request to create new user, and I got the link back. Let's come inside our database, refresh this, and here we have our smart cycle market, and we have the user where we had this password with this cryptic value, which is going to be our hashed value, and that same thing is true for this auth verification token. Now if you see, the actual value for this token looks way different, and that same thing is for our password as well. And now instead of sending these tokens to our user, we want to send these tokens to the email address. But before that, we also want to handle one more thing, and that is going to be TypeScript. Like as we saw earlier, we cannot use our user.compare password method. So we are going to fix this thing in the next video.